Hello and welcome to the Back of the Nest end of season review show. And it's a little bit of an unscripted chat, and not because in any way that we couldn't be bothered to do any work. That would be a complete lie. And now, if DR can switch the camera angle, I can introduce my panel. Look at them all. First up, director DR Kernas.
Hello, how are we doing?
All right.
Why do you call me director?
Because you have power. You can change that. You can make people's heads bigger. I can zoom in. You can mute people, unmute people, get rid of video, kick people out of the call. You've just got too much power now.
Yeah. How are we all doing?
Yeah, all right. I mean, looking forward to your pearls of wisdom on the season. But but we'll come to that. In the middle, we have it's Samantha Clacker. Hello, Sam.
Hello.
You're here to take us through a quiz at some point.
Of course.
Which we haven't really talked about and how that's going to work in the current format. There's going to be awkwardly, yeah. But the other thing you're going to do is to sit there looking interested, isn't it? And nodding.
That's the plan.
Laughing in all the right places as well.
Yeah.
And I think we'll go to Mr. Albert Curley next. Hello, Albert.
Hello, mate. Just click the unmute button there just before I started talking.
Yeah. You're having some trouble, weren't you, a minute ago with the mic sort of pop shield rest that you thought was behind you?
Yeah,
I can only see it behind you now. But now you've touched. Oh, don't do that. I thought I'd left the Hoover out and it was over there, and I looked round because it threw me, and then it's only when I came back round here and got to about there, I was like, oh, it's that. I'm a bit perturbed at the wide angle lens on my machine. I didn't think you'd see so much of the room. And I'm very aware that the little play area down there is a mess. So I can only apologise. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not judging you, but there will be people who are.
I think that's from when Albert threw his toys out of his pram and Watford went down.
And those were the dulcet tones of Mr. Sam Hesketh. Hello.
Hello. I don't have my glasses on because if I put my glasses on, you just have big white screens, so I can't really see.
I sort of got that going on anyway.
Did you not go for the anti-glare coating at the opticians for only £25 extra a lens?
I'm not rich.
How much extra a lens did you say, Albert?
I thought it was £25 a lens.
I don't have that. I don't have that sort of money to think about.
I mean, that's what I thought it said on the price list, but I was in the optician, so it could have said anything.
Oh dear. So we've had a weird season, haven't we? Of it all. Palace haven't been the most inspiring, and we've had the oddity of that COVID break. And I think overall, I would say it seems like a lot of the fans are kind of fed up with with Palace as a whole. But we've got the task of going back to the very start of the season and thinking about how we felt. We'll also be going through some of the fan questions we've had sent in. And also just a quick word for our sponsor, which is Pitch Sport Football. If you Google Pitch Sport Football, download their app in time for next season. They're going to continue supporting us next season as well. And any other sponsors we don't have could potentially become sponsors, like beer sponsors. So that is Orbit Beer, Peel Belgian Pale, and that is named after DJ John Peel.
Interesting. We've got another sponsor. Another
sponsor is
my wife is Mexican, so I like Mexican beer. Give me some more.
I hate to make it awkward, but I don't think we're going to get any sponsorship from John Peel. I don't know if that's what you were going for, Ham.
No. I mean, I don't think he has any say in the brewery itself. It's Orbit Brewery I was going for.
Fine.
They made a lovely elderflower sour beer as well that I had the other day. It was very nice.
If Terence was here, he'd be applauding, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to cover that gap because, of course, he dropped out quite late, didn't he? So,
what was his excuse?
Double booked, apparently. And I would be wrong of me to say that he blamed his wife.
Yeah, I don't know if I read it wrong. He said, "I've been double booked by my wife. My mum's coming round," why? You should be inviting your mum round, shouldn't you? Like he's all he's done is oust himself as a shit host and a terrible son.
Wow,
absolutely right. Sorry, I'm just looking around for stuff. This is the problem with the video format. Is usually I can sort of search around and do other stuff while Dia's talking nonsense, but it's a bit more visible this time. So
it's starting already.
No, it's just the way things have to be, Kernaz.
Well, you're not going to put your meat right now.
Exactly. So at some point we'll have a quiz, lovingly prepared by Sam. How angry will I get about the quiz questions, Sam?
Not that angry.
No? Will they reward people with knowledge, or do they reward people who can just guess?
Yes.
All the above.
All right.
Depends on your knowledge sphere.
My knowledge sphere. What is a knowledge sphere? Honestly. Jesus.
It's your head, isn't it?
Yeah. Mine's more of an oval. Is that the right word?
Depends on your knowledge, oval. Doesn't sound right.
No. I'm going to back out this conversation pretty quickly. Got a lot of editing to do, DR, I think.
Yeah.
But look, let's talk about it. We would have had our expectations at the start of the season, and if we try and get a little bit of perspective, how do you think that the season itself stood up? I'll start with you, DR, since you're top left. What did you think at the start of the year? Can you remember that far ago?
Well, start of the year, what happened? It was Wilf that was rumoured to leave the club. We lost to Everton. I can't even remember about the results that much. I think we started off well because all season long I remember not us fighting for relegation. So yeah, it was a weird way to go into the season because of what happened with Wilf in the summer. But yeah, I didn't have much expectations really to go into the season, and you can see it throughout the season. We've been a mediocre team. Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't the best football to watch last year, but I think I personally went into it with a bit of hope and that things might be better and we might see the emergence of some younger players, but that very much didn't happen. How about yourself? Oh, who am I going to pick first? Who's ready? He looks ready. Out, Heska, if you look ready.
Oh, take that, Albert. Yeah, I just remember. I remember being in Switzerland for the pre-season game, and not being super confident for the season ahead. And then we let a goal in after about 2 minutes, I think, and then I just got really pissed. And I think if I'd have continued that for the whole season, it would have been a much more entertaining season. I remember being annoyed at the transfer window because we hadn't fought well, which sort of is a running theme, isn't it? But yeah, like you say, mediocre pretty much all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Again, we had another poor transfer window. The summer always promises a lot and never really delivers. But I think we kind of got used to that over the last few years. But perhaps that's something to be said in defence of Roy, which I dare say we'll talk about a lot. But I suppose just again from you, Albert, you haven't had a chance to say what your expectations were and whether they were met or not by what you look back at.
Well, it's been so miserable for most of recent memory. I can't actually remember what my expectations were. But yeah, I remember like the Zaha saga sort of rambled on probably a bit too long in the summer, and there was the sort of Arsenal bid that maybe was, maybe wasn't, and then obviously Everton coming in, and obviously our first game was Everton, and that kind of put a bit of a weird mood on the opening game. And I mean, I can't say I remember the Everton game very well. I know they went down to 10 men, and I just remember sort of thinking, we weren't bad, and it was only the first game, but then you look at Sheffield United, and we always do it. It was reminiscent of Huddersfield a few seasons ago, where you think, it's a newly promoted side, we should get something out of this, and we got royally tucked up by them. And then just sort of looking at the results, I didn't realise how early that victory at Old Trafford was. That felt like much later in the season when things were going a bit better. And then and then out to Colchester. So it wasn't off to a great start, and we the season sort of fizzled out. So it's been a bit of a strange one. I was having this conversation with a QPR fan today. He was like, "Yeah, but what is your aim? You've stayed up. You were never in danger," which is true. But it gets to a point where, and I don't want to sound like a Charlton or a Stoke fan, you do hope for a little bit more. And yeah, it went a bit stagnant, I think, this season. And we didn't score many goals. It was a bit of a damp squib on the whole.
Yeah, I mean, those opening two games really sum it up for me. That's the sad thing, really. The Everton game, we obviously first game of the season at home. We had the singing section had moved to the new location. there was a lot of excitement in general about how we're going to be this. The atmosphere was going to get back to its best, and we were going to start the season with a win, like you always hope you will. And it was just the most boring, negative game of football you could possibly imagine. And then to, like you say, to follow up with that game against Sheffield United. Now, obviously, we weren't to know how well Sheffield United would do throughout the course of the season. But that was us showing a real lack of ambition against a manager who was doing something really different. You looked at the team that started against us, and you wouldn't have picked any of them to come and play in our side. Yet they dominated the whole game. So. For me, it really set the tone, and I very early on, I was, to be honest, most of I was pretty fed up with Roy back end of the previous season, but it really set the tone for me at the start of the year, and I had several times had to sort of flip flop after results started the upturn, but I kind of not sure what that sound was. I kind of feel now like I did probably after the Sheffield United game, which was just about basically a season of potentially missed opportunities. So, I mean, look, I don't know how much to add for that. I mean, maybe Sam Clacker might have some pearls of wisdom to help us out there.
You can call me Samantha if you like, if it makes things easier.
I prefer to overcomplicate it by referring to two different people as Sam.
Fair enough. See, at the beginning of the season, like Albert said, I thought, okay, we're going into Everton. There's been the Zaha stuff. It might be an exciting game, and it wasn't. And then I was kind of interested to see how VAR was going to work as well, because it was new for the league, and maybe some of the opportunities that we had not been able to capitalise on in terms of penalties and cards and things like that would have come up, but doesn't seem to have done that. So that's a disappointment.
Yeah, definitely. We had all that talk to me before the season started. Everyone was like, oh, at least we're going to get a bunch of penalties now because of Zaha finally getting the justice he deserves. But it didn't quite pan out that way. But let's talk a little bit about some of the highlights of the season, both negatively and positively. You've mentioned, Albert, there the 2-1 win against Man United, and that was a real high because it was a decent performance more than anything. Ayew's opening goal was a lovely finish, but we were just really solid in that game, and it looked like those opening two games were us finding our feet. But I think arguably that was probably one of, if not the peak of the season, at least one of them.
Yeah, I mean, decent performance, poor quality stream, and I remember having both those goals spoiled. In fact, that was the day that I deleted the Palace app on my phone because I'd get the ping on my phone that somebody had scored, and I'm watching for another minute, and then it's like, oh, you've scored. So that's the day I deleted that app. It was annoying me, but it was a fantastic performance, and I think the real sort of false dawn in that game was that Benteke and Ayew looks like a real combination. Benteke sort of looked that the player that I think most people come to accept that he is now. He's not an out goal scorer anymore. We're going to be lucky if he ever hits double figures in a season again. But it's what he allows the other players around him to do, and I think Ayew definitely benefited from that day, and we saw it a few times later in the season. But again, fantastic performance and much deserved. And you look at what United went on to do this year, and finished the season really strong. And I know they obviously signed Fernandes in January, who we didn't face back in August, but they're a quality outfit on most weeks of the season, and we did ourselves really proud. And but it's typical Palace. We follow it up, going out to Colchester on pens in the cup. But in isolation, you're probably right, Chris. That was the highlight of the season. It's just a shame that it came in game 3. We weren't even in September.
Absolutely right. And I really am struggling to think of any other time when I was more positive than that. And I think obviously the joy of it being a late injury time goal as well, and PVA getting forward. Arguably, De Gea should have done a bit better with the finish, but it was a joyous moment, and quite rightly, everyone was giving Roy the plaudits off the back of it. But testing your memories now, but I'll go to you now, DR, and see if can you think of maybe a best or worst game of the season for you?
My best game of the season has to be probably Brighton away. Due to the fact that I went to that game and we managed to beat them. There was nothing really. That on occasion is special, going to a game and away game and seeing your team win, especially with Palace, considering how the season went. But the fact that we went to Brighton and won that game, but the worst game of the season, I don't know where to decide. I mean, we've only scored 41 goals in 38 games. So pretty much, I can't really pick the worst game of the season. I honestly can't, because there's been so many games where, despite winning, of course, the points matter, but it's just been so dull to watch, and it hasn't been exciting one bit. And when you look at the end of the season and how we actually ended, it caught up to us. All them performances did slowly catch up to us, and we're lucky that we picked up points earlier on in the year. There's been so many dull games, so I can't actually pick.
No, fair enough, and I think that's the funny thing really about this season, in the sense that you could pick. Say, I mean, I would pick for example, the Spurs game where we were absolutely destroyed in the first half. Yeah, I mean that was embarrassing, to be honest with you. It really hurt to be that much worse than Spurs. I mean,
who weren't even that good at the time.
No, exactly. They'd really struggled. They were there for the taking, and we just turned up and basically let them play. It was the perfect thing for them, because they were lacking confidence and belief and time on the ball. And we just turned up and said, well, off you go. Have it. Have us play as much as you like. Get your confidence up. And, we'll sort that right out for you. But that possibly, even though it was really painful conceding quite so many goals, it wasn't necessarily more painful than some of the games where, we just didn't have any ambition. And you go back to the Colchester game in the Cup, that's where it really started to dawn on me how we just were not changing our style or our approach to any game dependent on the opposition. You would think, although Colchester, I think, went on to beat another Premier League club, I forget who. But
Tottenham, I think.
It was oh, yeah.
Yeah, they went on to beat Tottenham.
But you look at that game, you just think, if we'd approached that game, rather than treating them exactly like they were a Premier League opponent and trying to get men behind the ball and keep our shape, if we'd just actually gone after them, and we might have done something a little bit better than we did. But that was a theme throughout the course of the year. Eskif, how about you? Good or bad game you would pick out?
I was just trying to think of what performances were particularly bad, and like you say, there was quite a few just because it was so dull. I mean, there was a lot of tepid performances where we just never looked like doing anything in the game. And the ones that I'm thinking of particularly at the moment are the ones like, Leicester that we lost fairly recently, where they were in a bad run of form, I think, weren't doing great, and we just sort of let them get a goal and then just fell apart. And the second half against Wolves was the same, where we're chasing a game, but you just know it's not going to happen because we're not trying to do anything. We're not changing personnel, or if we are, it's to bring on a more sort of defensive player or a like for like instead of going attacking. So just like you say, I think Tottenham is probably the one where we were just absolutely abysmal. I think you can caveat the Liverpool one with the fact that Liverpool were, far and away the best team in the league. But it's just a sort of falling over for teams, especially in post lockdown period, where, like you say, it's just boring. It's just like you go into the game knowing if we let in the first goal, that's it. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to be able to get back into it. To be a bit more positive, I think like DR, I really like the Brighton game. Going there and winning is always fun. But I think that the Bournemouth at home was really good as well. And we obviously had Mama sent off after like 10 minutes or whatever. And as bad as Bournemouth were, I thought we were excellent. It was the one game where we were actually creating stuff and really dominating the ball. It was strange considering we had a man less. But the celebrations for Schlupp's goal in that game were some of my favourites for ages, just because, you would think we'd get easily beaten by this great footballing team, this myth that everyone has about Bournemouth. And I'm sure we'll talk about something else to do with Bournemouth soon. But yeah, that was just a fun game because with 10 minutes gone, you just think, well, that's it. We've lost now because we've had a man sent off. But we actually played really well. And it's a shame that we didn't take that sort of mindset and that attitude into other games that we could have got better results in.
Yeah, and I like that you pointed that out, because that has been real bugbear of mine. It's the mentality thing. And when you see moments on the pitch that actually bring the players together like that, with Mamas sending off, which, was a harsh sending off, and you've seen lesser fouls than that be given as red cards. You've also seen worse fouls being given as yellows or nothing. But it just felt really unjust at the time, and that just galvanised the players. And that's another thing that you wonder about this season, for all the criticism levelled at Roy. Why? Obviously, he has a part to play in how the collective mindset of the players is nurtured, but they've definitely taken their foot off the gas, especially in the post-lockdown stuff. And Ray Lewington was interviewed fairly recently talking about that, and he said, Roy does disagree. He says it's not a factor. He doesn't believe that it made any difference whatsoever that we had nothing to play for. But he said he felt differently, and he felt that it's something unavoidable in the players, that once it enters their brain that they don't have anything necessarily to play for, and they're playing teams that are fighting for either promotion or to avoid relegation, then they suffer, because you only have to drop by that sort of 5 or 10%. But I took that point, but then we talk about what we're doing now. We're trying to go through a list of fixtures, if you like, in our heads, and trying to pick out the moments of joy or the moments that we found negative, and we're finding it hard to focus on either, because it has been such a uninspiring season, really. But I am glad that you picked out the Brighton game initially, DR, and that was backed up further. And that kind of leads me on to you, Sam. If you've got any favourite or non-favourite games, Clacker.
Yeah, probably favourite is still Brighton away because it's so local to where I am, and I have so many Brighton supporting friends that it's always nice when we beat them. But I think the one game that I felt was kind of unjust was probably the Liverpool at home game, because there is no way that Ayew took down Van Dijk in the disallowed goal, and I think that should have been a draw. So by that point, I was like, early on in the season, I'm fed up already. So, and that's kind of lasted.
But I mean, there was one thing that did sort of ruin that Brighton away experience, and of course, it was just before COVID really broke. Although there were some cases in Brighton, and Chris Clark got drunk and licked my head, didn't he? Quite a lot.
He also held my hand for quite a long time.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, held your hand a lot, licked my head a fair bit, and doing his bit to stop the spread of disease.
I think I was ill then as well.
Yeah, you'd gone home by that point.
But wasn't I ill at Brighton away? I can't remember.
I feel like I was ill. Were. I don't know. Every time you go to an away game, you're either ill or you need a poo. And,
let's not talk about that.
We promised Mike we wouldn't talk too much about poo stories, or even though you do have a lot of them.
Man need to release his, kebabs. I can't think them all then.
Oh my, jeez. Wow. Actually, Albert, Sam, you got any football poo stories at all?
The football all season has been shit.
That's a fair one. Yeah.
No. I needed a poo at Arthur's football lesson yesterday, but I don't think that's something that we need to go into too much.
No, probably not. I like how it's got very dark in your background of your house.
Yeah, I do feel like I'm
Yeah.
You're on the spotlight.
We need a bit of fill light in here, don't we?
Yeah. It's gone quite. Yeah,
starting to look at a bit of criminal, like a criminal.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was. Yeah. Oh dear. So anyway, look, we talked a little bit about the matches. Just interested if we can sort of divert a little bit to players who's perhaps been impressed us the most and who've been most disappointed with. And one thing I was surprised about, and I talked quite positively about him last season, but really feel like we missed Jeff Schlupp. I feel weird admitting it.
You've had a funny season when you start saying
I know.
Is that even a good thing though? Is that even it's I don't want to sound harsh, but missing Jeffrey Schlupp, like, he's not a bad player, but out of everyone, it's not a good indication, is it?
No,
But
but
sounded too harsh.
yeah, but I mean, my expectations are fairly low anyway. But I want to go on record again as saying I have a real issue with him as being played as a central midfielder because I think he's appalling as a central midfielder. I think when he has those moments, which he does on the left wing as well, where he just switches off a little bit and doesn't cover back, you cannot get away with that in the midfield. You can just about get away with it if you're playing forward on left, like he has done. But just the direct running that he gives you, and he doesn't do that enough, but he just does it more than anyone else does at the moment, and that's made a difference. And he was early on in the season, either off the bench or starting a game here and there. He was a proper goal threat for us, and that made such a big difference in a team that doesn't score many. So although he was injured for a large proportion of the season, I would say he was probably one of those this year that, well, just this year made me appreciate what he does bring to the team as opposed to what he doesn't. So that's my kind of initial one. I've got a few more, but I'll hand over to whoever wants to speak next.
I mean, I missed Jeffrey Schlupp in the way that if Jeffrey Schlupp is on the pitch or on the bench, you're more likely to see Roy try and do like a sub. Like I didn't miss the play. I missed the concept of Jeffrey Schlupp. Because he's the one player that Roy tries to do something slightly different with. I'm not saying I always like what Roy does with Jeffrey Schlupp, but at least central midfield this week, or fullback, or attacking left midfielder. Like I missed what he the flexibility of what he does and the slight difference he might make on the rest of the starting lineup. Without it, we just knew what we're getting every week.
I know exactly what you mean. Because of Roy's insane desire to shoehorn him in anywhere, he had to actually think creatively, tactically, to try and accommodate that. So, yeah, I'll give you that. But have you got any other players that you feel are worthy of a mention for either good or bad reasons?
Well, I feel it's harsh, but maybe it's not harsh. I've just been incredibly, and I don't know why I'm disappointed, because I wasn't like punching the air when we signed him, but I just think James McCarthy has just come in and brought a whole big bag of even mediocre might be too exciting a word to describe James McCarthy, in my opinion. People say he's good at getting other people's faces and mixing it up a bit, but we need a little bit more than that to sort of put a mark on our team. He's taken set piece duty every now and then. Doesn't seem to have any real quality there. And I know we didn't blow 10 million quid on him, but I just don't. Again, apart from the fact that he was a player that could be rotated and used every now and then, certainly during post-lockdown football, I mean, can anybody give me anything of note that he did in the season?
No, I think people do speak well of him about how, like you say, he's in everybody's face. I love his energy. I love his commitment. I love that what a shit house he is and all this kind of stuff. And but I'm with you, Al. But I don't see what he's had a couple of half decent games where I've thought, he looks like, because he was a very good player for Everton probably 3-4 years ago, and I've seen little signs of that, but. He used to, and it's not his fault, but Roy used to annoy me talking about him and saying, how great he was and how we're all going to see how brilliant a player he is. And that we'll get him back to his best. And, he sings his praises. He did it at least 3-4 times throughout the course of the season. And you won't hear him speak positively about anybody else, who's a fringe player working hard to get into the team. So it just kind of proved the point that he was a signing that Roy went for. He's always going to be one of Roy's favourites. And he's just the same type of player than any of the players he can replace in that central midfield. And it's just annoying, and it's probably not his fault. And he's not a terrible footballer, but I agree, he doesn't really bring a huge amount to the squad.
It sort of goes back to what we're talking about Schlupp. Like, which game was it? The games were so thick and fast towards the end of the season when the central midfield was McCarthy, and Schlupp. It was like, oh my, it was.
McCarthy's actually linked with a move away from the club. I think it came out today, wasn't it? £5 million to Villa. I don't.
How many
We wouldn't
pounds?
mind that. 5 million.
I thought you said, I don't know. I thought you said £800, and I didn't sniff at that, to be honest.
But yeah, honestly, bite their hands off for £5 million. You know,
But it's Roy's player, though. I mean, he's not going to change it about. So he won't be happy if you lose McCarthy, as crazy as it might sound. Yes, he hasn't done much, but if you get rid of McCarthy, then even though Roy's got a year left in his contract, he might not be too happy about that.
oh, that's a shame. He'll have to leave then, won't he?
Well, that's up to the board.
Mate, I mean, Roy's getting on. Maybe we could convince him that James McCarthy is still at the club, but just somehow hoodwink Roy. Yeah. That's him over there. That's him. There he is. There he is. No, don't bring him over. Don't bring him over. He's got high temperature. Roy, you're still shielding.
Oh, dear. But yeah, you know, in terms of players that have actually no, sorry, Heske, if you've got to have a turn in terms of players that have either impressed or depressed you.
Hesketh looks very frozen.
He's very still, isn't he?
What has he seen? Zoom in on him. DR, what has he seen?
He's absolutely shocked.
Don't let it go. I've got
No.
Put it back.
What?
Put it back.
Yeah.
I've got to screen grab that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Wow, he's seen some horrors. He was.
Yeah.
Now tell you what, put him back on. Leave him up. Albert's a Watford fan. I didn't like anything because I'm really miserable. The dog's done shit.
Oh, you're milking it. Now it's on me.
Oh, we've lost him. No,
Yeah, we lost him.
Hopefully he'll come back
That's
in.
the best insight he's had all season.
Well, other Sam, whilst previous Sam has gone missing for some reason, presumably something that surprised him a lot. Who are your favourite players this season, or non-favourite players?
I mean, I thought Riedewald was pretty versatile, but
yes, good shout on Riedewald. Played
sort
well
of
at left back, didn't he?
got
Then
got
did all
about
right
a
in
bit.
midfield. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
But he still doesn't get consistent minutes, though.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to see if Hesketh's going to make that same face again.
Oh, yes. You'll have to watch it. You'll have to watch it later. I'm just telling you, Albert had a fun.
Albert started talking, and I just thought, no, I'm not having it.
You look like something terrible had happened just in front of you, and you were just frozen in fear.
Albert was talking.
Yeah.
That's literally what it was.
But yeah, we'll watch that back because
I can't wait. Literally, everything just went black on the screen. And then I was trying to type in the box saying, should I just refresh? And then it just closed the tab. So who knows?
Well, I threw a question to you, and you were seemingly frozen.
Very rude. Very rude.
Oh, sorry.
So it's really just to get your further input onto any players who you felt performed well, or above your expectations, or below your expectations this year.
Ooh, below. Much as I love him, I think Luka's had a bad season. I think he is everything that you sort of liked about him, or do like about him still, as a player. It just didn't happen this year. And I know he's had sort of patches where he hasn't been great in previous seasons, but this year was just consistently bad, I thought. And when you're playing the sort of football we're playing, and you don't really have much creative spark, to have someone who's usually quite reliable, not that he's the creative spark, but you know what I mean, someone who's quite reliable to let everyone else around them play. When he's struggling, I think then you're sort of relying on the others to do part of his job. And there's only so much James McCarthy can do. You know, I love Jimmy, and I think he's had a pretty good season. But yeah, Luka really off the pace. Like Albert, I think James McCarthy has been bang average, if that. I'm not impressed by him. I don't really know what he gives us. I saw someone say that he was the best passing midfielder at the club, which is odd because I haven't seen him pass the ball forward in about 6 months. Anyone who's been good, I mean, Cahill was pretty good.
We should have started with who's impressed, because it'd have been
it's a very short list.
Yeah, why don't we talk about Jordan Ayew? I mean, going into the season, our expectations of him, he was not even going to be a starter. I didn't expect him to start the game. I thought he'd come off the bench and just run around and maybe get an odd goal or two, but it's been crazy for him. This season, he was our star man. And without him, right now, we'll probably be in the relegation zone. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, and I'm certainly not disagreeing with you. He was our star man, but apart from Ayew and Guaita, who had a few not as many, not Hennessy howlers, but he had had his fair share of howlers. Who realistically would have challenged Ayew for Player of the Season? That's
a different question now.
It was just about a 2-horse race, And I'm not taking anything away from Ayew at all. He had a fantastic season and scored some amazing goals and scored the most goals. But I think it's really dire, And I don't want to put the boot in on him, but Wilf has to go in there as being a bit of a disappointment. He tried his best, always tries his best. It's hard to dribble around, 4 players that are trying to kick lumps out of you and have no real option or any outlet on the other side of the pitch. But I hate to sound like Roy Hodgson with what Wilf is potentially capable of. We have to be disappointed, and if this is his last season, his last few games for Palace, it has kind of fizzled out. And I'm not saying it to be harsh. I'm not saying he needs to go or we should sell him and he's useless. He's not as good as he thinks he is. But when you have a talismanic player like that, you do, and the coaching staff do. We all have our hopes pinned on Wilf because he's head and shoulders above everybody else, or should be. So it's disappointing, from a fan perspective, that he hasn't been anywhere near his best this season.
Yes, but sorry, 1 second. That's my door. So you guys carry on talking.
Avon,
do you think it's Will's fault that, like, it sounds crazy, but the way that we've set up this season, you've been asking Wilf basically to go back and track back and have a lot of defensive duty. So in a way, I'm like, yes, he could have done better, but the way that we were set up, he was not in a position to succeed.
Yeah, 100%. He's definitely not been utilised in the most effective way. And like I say, he has 3-4 players on him in a flash, and the best players in the world struggle with that, and often the best players in the world have a better quality of player around them to, like I say, to find that pass. And if we had, we think back to when we had Zaha and Balassi, if one was getting ganged up on, the other one would find space, and we don't have that. Andros Townsend, another one on the disappointment list, certainly post lockdown, looks a shadow of the player that he has done over the last few seasons. And
he said that himself, didn't he?
Anything that Andros says, I've got to say, he's, like I said, whilst as equally as disappointed as I am with him on his performance on the pitch, like you say, the fact that he's aware of it, and I mean, he talks a lot of sense, and I've got a lot of time for Andros Townsend, but we've had nobody apart from maybe Ayew occasionally, just to try and take that pressure off Wilf. And like you say, DR, that is not Wilf's fault, and I'm not here putting the boot in on Wilf, but when it's essentially, we've been spoiled. We've had him probably 3 seasons longer than I would have expected him to be at the club. And it's just a shame that it feels like it's really fizzled out, and he does have to go on the list of players that's been a disappointment. You can go into
how much do you
think
think
it is.
How much do you think he's worth right now then? Because there's that question where, of course, he wants to leave the club, but in a year or two, he's going to be 29, 30 years old. So ideally, if the club are selling Wilf, then now would be the perfect time if you're looking at value. But if you don't look at value, then
he's got to lost 20 million off of his value from last year, isn't he? If you look at both,
especially after Roy put a boot on him on the
exactly, yeah.
And
I dare say,
don't buy this house; it's falling down. But please feel free to look round. What are you doing, Roy?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine Roy's employers probably felt quite similar at that comment. I would suggest as well. It was ridiculous, and then people were defending him, and this is what really gets me about the Wilf debate. Because you can't, it's really difficult to try and reach people when you're arguing with them, because they always think straight away that if they criticise Wilf and you say, hold on a second, and you try and give them reasons why Wilf might be struggling, like, Diar's just been explaining and you've been explaining. If you try and give them that explanation, they're like, oh, you're just defending him for no good reason. It's like, well, actually, first of all, some of these people criticising him, I don't think remember what it was like when Wilf came through into the team, and the fact that I still feel he almost single-handedly got us promotion in the first place. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, because those people who do remember those days, they still expect him to be breezing past 3 or 4 players every single second of every single game. And I get that to a point, and I will always concede that it's been a poor season for Wilf. But to basically talk about him the way some people are and say that it's he doesn't give a shit about Palace, he doesn't want to play for us anymore, he's just down tools, he's sulking, blah 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 blah. So first of all, his on-pitch persona's not changed from when he was a teenager, really. In fact, if anything, he's slightly more mellow than he was. But he has been an emotional player forever. He's always one of those who gets wound up, and opposition players will target him. The biggest problem goes back to exactly what you've been saying earlier on, which is we only have one real way of playing. And if opposition teams nullify Wilfried Zaha, we've got nothing in the tank whatsoever anywhere else on that pitch to do anything different. So Wilf gets hung out to dry for that reason, for effectively being marked out of a game, and that's what's frustrating. But the level of disrespect, even if you think that's a load of bollocks and he's not as good as people are making out, I think he is. I think he's one of the best players ever to play for Palace. But if you don't agree with that, you still shouldn't be disrespecting a player who's come through our ranks and given us so many years, when he is recognised as one of the best players outside the top 6 and has been for quite some time. It's just absolute lunacy to lay into him.
So what do you think? Back to Diar's question then, what do you think? What's the price tag at the moment?
Yeah, 50 mil probably. If that.
I said it last season, and I'd have, if it was up front, I'd have taken the 45 last season, because I couldn't see, especially after the Everton debacle, and by all accounts he came out and said he wanted to move. I couldn't see how, fast forwarding a year, that we were ever going to get any more than that, because, and again, maybe I'm looking back and sort of claiming some sort of clairvoyance, which I'm not intending on doing. But I don't see if we got. People didn't really know what the Everton offer was. Some people said it was 50, 55. I'd have taken the Arsenal 45, knowing that the player himself is an Arsenal fan by all reports, and I think that's a good move for him. And I just couldn't see how we were ever going to get any more than that, in 12 months' time. He would have been a year older. He would have had to have an even better season than the ones he'd had for people to obviously bring their expectations up of his worth to, how we value him. I worry I don't think we get any offers above 40 now, to be honest. I don't know if anyone else would take that. I think we have to take it, whatever it is now. I think that's the problem. We're now backed into a corner where there's only so many times you can say to Wilf, we'll let you go if we get the right offer. But if we're expecting someone to rock up and pay 70 million quid, I think we're dreaming. They've just paid 40 million for City. Look like they're going to pay 40 million for Ake, which skews the whole market. But I cannot see anyone coming anywhere near 50 for us.
Well, that's the problem. It's like Wilf wants to leave, and I really don't think the club will sell him for less than 50 million. And I don't see anyone coming in for more than even 50 million. I don't see anyone paying that right now, because let's take a step back and look at it as a neutral. Like, look at his stats this season, assists and goals. I know it doesn't show everything, but he hasn't performed in that level, and you expect his production to go up. So I don't blame clubs, but then you got an issue. Well, he wants to leave. No one's going to pay for him. So what? You're just going to keep him at the club? And what if he doesn't perform at the levels that he can and will next season? I'm not saying that his performance are going to drop, but it's a possibility because we keep holding him back. So it's just natural. Like, he wants to progress, and we keep keeping him at Palace. And I understand every party involved. I understand their reasonings, but it is worrying because you can see something like that happen potentially, where Wilf is like, right, enough is enough. I can't be bothered anymore because you're not being realistic with your value with me.
Yeah,
But then surely, his performance increases his value. He performs better. He's more likely to get to the better clubs, and it all tailed off this season. But
it doesn't work like that, though, because you look at the tactics this season. He can't perform better. He can't because he's not put in a position to.
Well, I think there's truth on both sides of it, as always, because there's no doubt, whether it's his fault or not, there's no doubt that the way he has performed, especially probably since we come back from lockdown, that won't have done him any favours in getting the biggest move possible at all. There's no doubt whatsoever that. I mean, I can't remember what was the game now where he just literally didn't move. It was doing my head in. I think it was the Leicester game, where for whatever reason he was completely different when he played against Chelsea. When he played against Chelsea, he ran with the ball. He took people on. He was playing centrally, drifting out wide, doing lots of different things. Being the Wilfried Zaha we know, and he got a very good goal in that game. But I'm pretty sure it was the Leicester game where every time he picked the ball up, he just didn't run with it. He just wasn't Wilfried Zaha. And those sorts of things that'll be where a scout look at it or a manager look at it and will go, yeah, you know what? He's past his best. They talk about people peaking at sort of 27, 28. Maybe he had an earlier peak and he's just not the player he was because he was just too eager to look for a sideways pass. Now, the argument will always be how much of that was down to him and how much of that was down to the instructions he had from the manager. And that's the bit we won't know. But what Sam was saying is absolutely true. If he's got he's had that this whole season, he's had to walk that tightrope of not really wanting to be at Palace because let's face it, he wanted to leave. So he's got that psychologically, he's got that problem straight away. He didn't want to be here, but he knows he has to play for Palace as well as he possibly can to actually get the move that he wants. And this season wouldn't have helped either the club or him at all in that respect because it was a poor season.
I think the problem is going to be moving on if he does stay next season because no one will pay the money, and we do keep Roy. It's hard to see how that trend doesn't continue. So if his value's depreciated and he's playing more defensively and he's not the Wilf that we know that can take players on, you remember that game a few years ago when we beat Watford 2-1 and MacArthur scored and Wilf basically beat half their team. And knocked it back to him for the goal. You don't see him do that.
Didn't get an assist.
Didn't get an assist. But you don't see him do that anymore. And every time he gets a ball and he has space in front of him, I get excited that he's going to do what we all know he can do and just run the player, run the defender, take him on. And he doesn't want to do it. And like Hambo said, I think that's to do with management. But also, if he gets in his own head and he just doesn't want to do it, then it's disappointing for everyone. And like you say, he's our only real creative spark. We don't have another winger on the other side that can do it if Will's not performing or if Will's been double marked. And I think, it seems from like Roy's odd comment in the press about Wilf, that it seems that those two are at loggerheads. So when Roy says, we can't make him like us, I think Wilf likes Palace just fine. Not saying he doesn't want to go, but I don't think Wilf dislikes Palace. I think he loves Palace. I think he's very fond of us. But I think it's Roy now that he's probably got an issue with. And if Roy does stay on, which is at the moment looks like it's going to happen, and we just play the same way, which, even if we do buy new players, we don't know that Roy's going to play him or change the way he plays looking at this season. Then I think Wilf's going to be in trouble because it's going to be more of the same, which then is a knock-on effect to the club trying to get money for him because we ain't going to.
No, I completely agree.
Here's another question. Take price tag completely out of it. Which teams in the Premier League of significantly higher stature that are in Europe, how many of those teams do you think need Wilfried Zaha? Because that's the other concern I have for him as someone looking to move on to further their career. I think Everton would still probably take him and he'd get a game there most weeks. But, he doesn't get into the Liverpool team. He doesn't get into the City team. I don't know how he feels about Man United on a personal level. But
I think that's the only reason. It's Man United. I think other than Man United, I I'm just trying
Spurs,
to think. No.
Arsenal,
Yeah.
like,
I think
maybe.
Spurs, both Spurs and Arsenal. I think he'd probably.
I think there
do
is
well
only. I think there is only realistic options, and Spurs don't look like Spurs don't really like spending the money. Arsenal are Arsenal going to come back and offer more than 45 million quid that they offered last year? Can't see it myself. I worry for him as someone who likes Wolf, and I'd love to see him go on and play in Champions League and go on to better things. But I'd have a concern for him that I don't know how many options there are for him, and I don't know if teams abroad would take him. I don't know if he'd want to do that. I feel like time's running out for him. And like you say, if Roy's going to stay and Wilf's going to stay, what's going to change there? And I look at that as a Palace fan. I think if we're going to let Wilf go, we can keep Roy. And I think if we're going to let Roy go, we can keep Wilf. I can't see both of those things happening in the same pre-season. That's the worry.
That's it. Well, let's move on to talking about Roy and moving our way through this. Get to some listener questions in a little bit. So we'll just do a quick look. We've talked about him all season, I'm sure. Well, I know we have from both the review show and the preview show. We've all given our opinions on social media about Roy Hodgson and his tactics and his approach and some of the things he's been saying, particularly of late. And someone's been doing a very good impression of him recently.
Go on, Hesketh.
Go on, you're on the spotlight.
But that reminds me. I've got a mate at work, and one of his favourite things to do if he's with two people, he'll say to person A, "Go on, do your impression of person B." And they'll be like, I don't do an impression of you. No, go on. No, he won't mind. He won't mind. Honestly, just do it. He won't mind. Go on, do it. It's so good. It's so good. No, I don't do an impression of it. It causes arguments. It's fantastic.
Oh, that is right. I'll start using that one, definitely.
With that in mind, go on, Hesketh, do your impression of Roy.
Oh, wait, mate.
He hasn't got one.
Yeah, he's looking at you like, what on earth is this guy saying?
Is he frozen again?
Do you know what? That vacant expression is actually quite a good impression of Roy. that's
doing
Roy.
nothing.
Specifically, that's Roy thinking about making a substitution.
Are you right, Hesketh?
I'm struggling. I don't know. It keeps telling me my Wi-Fi shit, but my Wi-Fi is not shit at all.
I mean,
my Wi-Fi shit. I can't believe it.
Oh dear. Well, it is entertaining having your face freeze every now and then. But
we're talking about Roy.
Yeah. So anyway, you're not going to do your impression of Roy, but
not when you want me to. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Look, I've said my piece plenty, so I don't really feel the need to repeat myself massively. But let's get an alternate view. Well, not an alternate, just a view from Sam Clacker on Roy Hodgson.
He is fine as a manager, but it's boring and he needs some sort of inventive play that actually progresses the team rather than just keeps them safe. I think that's. But who do you get in? Not Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe.
I would even take Thunderbird Head now over Hodgson, even though I hate him.
Thunderbird Head. Isn't that one of Terry's lagers?
It's probably delicious as well. It would taste faintly of grapefruit, like they all do. But look, that's a very diplomatic way of putting it. How would you put it, Hesketh?
Yeah, probably similar. I don't dislike him. I know there are people who don't like him. Patrick O'Connor, looking at you. Certainly don't hate the man. My hatred is reserved for the likes of Lewis Dunk, Jesse Lingard, Dele Alli, those sorts of little swear words. But with Roy, it's just, I think it's time. I think it's best for everyone if he just leaves with thanks in the summer or like now, I guess. So as say thanks for what he's done, and he took over at a really rough time because the ball rain was awful. As short as it was terrible. And he took over and he steadied the ship, and we played some all right football. I thought we actually played some really nice football when we had players like Cabaye and Loftus-Cheek in the team. And last season was all right, but we started to get a sense of him being too stubborn to change it and being loyal to his players, even though they're out of form. And this season, I think it's just been that times a million. You know, he just doesn't seem to want to change things. Even in the post-lockdown, you know, when you look at the Liverpool game with 4-0 down or 3-0 down with half an hour to go, and he just doesn't want to bring on anyone just to save legs. You know, he brings on Pierrick for 5 minutes. You might as well bring him on for half an hour, if only to rest the player that you're taking off.
Yeah, but Pierrick would have had to buy him 5 bottles of wine if he got half an hour.
You can't buy that on a YTS contract.
No.
That's he even said it though. Didn't he say before the restart that he's been looking at the youngsters and that he's potentially hinting that he'll give them more game time? That's what I don't understand. Why would you say that when you're lying only to yourself? I mean,
he forgot.
I still didn't believe it when he said that, and he proved that to be right. Pierrick, 5 minutes, and then Mitchell was a bit forced as well. So he's not going to play the youth.
But then he ends the season by saying, how well the players did because he was forced to continuously play them, and you just think, you weren't, mate. You weren't at all. There were so many opportunities to rest players or move people about and make substitutions. You could make up to 5. The maximum he made was 3. But even the last game of the season, he made 2 subs and one of them was on 85 minutes. You got a manager doing that for literally no reason. It's bizarre.
And he talks about having a small squad, you know, which we do. We do have a small squad, which, okay, might not be his fault. We don't know what happens with the recruitment, but let's just say it's nothing to do with him, not his fault. And he brings it up quite a lot, but he makes the squad smaller by not playing these players who are on the bench. Whether I think Mai is a good player or not, whether people think Jaro is a good player or not, you're making the squad smaller by not playing them. We're getting these injuries. We've got the oldest squad in the league and we're not rotating any of the players. And I'm not saying that causes every injury we've had, but I don't think it helps. So on the one hand, say we've got a small squad, but you at least play the players that are sitting on the bench. I'm not having that Max Meyer is so awful in training that he can't displace James McCarthy for a game. Like, I don't believe it. So I think if he does stay, which is a big if, I think with all the rumours swirling around, the recruitment is always key anyway, but seeing how he uses them is going to be even more interesting, I think.
Well, let's say he does stay and we back him in the market. You know, first of all, you have to suspend. What was that? Wow, what were you saying?
That's that's my worst fear. If there is money to spend, I'm worried about putting that in Roy Hodgson's hands. Because
if you suspend for the moment the belief that if you gave him the money to spend, he would buy 6 29-year-old defensive midfielders. If you ignore that kind of suspicion that would happen, and accept that actually he might go out and he might buy young players, and as often gets trotted out by people defending Roy, and look, every respect for anybody who's fighting his corner, fair play if that's what you believe, and you're supporting a Palace manager. I'm not going to criticise you for that, but I would, they do trot out the Ruben Loftus-Cheek thing all the time. Oh, look what happened when he was given a young promising player. He played him every time and the football was great and blah 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 blah. Forget it was for about 6 games it was actually good, but we can all rewrite history if we want, but okay, look,
we were at Bristol. It was shit.
Oh,
don't
even
Ruben
talk about Bristol.
Shit. You were shit, Roy.
That was
sorry.
That was the worst. I can't remember a game. That has to probably be. It wasn't this season though. Was it last season?
Yeah.
Actually, we beat them in pre-season, didn't we? I think I went to that game.
You need to go. You went to the one that Albert's referring to was before. That was the cup one when we lost 4-1, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was when PVA couldn't play football.
Yeah. We went 1-0 up through Sacco. We went 1-0 up through Sacco. And,
and just as we got there.
Yeah.
And then it was just rapidly downhill. And Ruben Loftus-Cheek was the epitome of everything that was wrong with that game of football, along with PVA. But I don't even bring up Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I'm getting emotional. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. But I was using him as an example of one of the things people will try out and say, well, this disproves the point that Roy only wants to play experienced players and can't manage young players. I mean, first of all, nobody's really saying that he can't manage young players because he has done so in his career effectively at times. But you can see it at Palace. He has got less and less willing to use inexperienced players, and he seems to have lost the connection between how do you get a player from inexperienced to experienced. You give them experience, and then they become experienced players. So he's become very myopic in the way that he thinks. He doesn't like to think seemingly more than a game ahead, and that's one of the biggest criticisms I have of him. But basically, what I was getting to is what you described, Albert, the fear of giving him that money and saying that backing, saying get who you want in, and actually having the faith that he still wouldn't pick all the same players.
It'd be Bobby Zamora. You'd see Bobby Zamora finally in a Palace shirt, like, at the time that we all least expected it. That's what we're talking about. Damien Duff would be resurrected from the dead.
Dear. But that's just how I feel about it. I don't think his interests and his way of operating have got any real connection with what we need to do next. And when I say next, I don't mean in a couple of years, 2-3 years time. You look at the players we've got, the contracts they're on, the ages they are. We needed to do something last summer, let alone this summer. So we're kind of in a panic, in my view, and I just don't see Hodgson being the right man for that situation. But hey, if he's there, let's hope he surprises us. But do you have any further comments on Roy?
We made a special pod about Roy, didn't we? Remember when after the Villa game where we talked about Roy Hodgson and his tactics? So, I mean, if you listen to that, then you probably know how I feel about Roy Hodgson. I think that it's time to move on. Even if he's at the club next season, I'm not even that confident that he will keep us up as I was, let's say, at the start of last season. I just feel like he's lost the players a bit. You can see it after his comments with Wilfried Zaha. So, personally, I think he has to go, but I don't see it happening. If it was going to happen, then I thought, after the Tottenham game, it would have happened. But we're right now speaking about Roy Hodgson and still at the club. So I don't see it happening. And thankfully, he's not in charge of the transfers fully because I don't even think he knows about Nathan Ferguson yet. He'll probably be surprised when he sees him at the training ground.
Oh, dear. Harsh. I just want a quick chat about supporters in general and how you think we as a fan base, including all of us, so we're not judging other people, we're judging ourselves as well. If you sort of go back, because I'm always interested in the idea of perspective, and when we were sitting in the Championship, nearly going out of business, and we were looking at Premier League clubs, I remember looking at some clubs and thinking, "Oh my God, you're kicking off about the fact that you might not finish in a European place this season, and we're weeks of going out of business. I'll never get like that. I'll never get so entitled that I'll be screaming for a manager to be sacked when we're comfortably surviving in the Premier League. Yet here I am." And I just wondered what. So I look at that, and I can sit here all day and justify the reasons I feel like I do feel about the need to replace Roy Hodgson, and I think it's a logical progression. I believe that I've considered all the different angles and the situation he's had to work in and how well he's done, but come to the conclusion that he's showing an inflexibility and a lack of forward thinking that I think will damage us severely next season, and has already damaged us in the last season and a half. But do you think us as a fan base have been significantly affected by being in the Premier League as long as we have? Open question.
Yes, I think is the short answer. I mean, the two big examples of how I interpret what you've just said is Charlton under Kirbishley and probably Stoke under Pulis. Teams that came up with those managers and did very well under those managers for sort of in the medium to long term, and it was then that the fans got kind of unrestful and were getting bored of the stagnation, or whatever you want to call it, and called for those sort of dramatic changes. But I think what sets us apart from those two teams is that we came up very briefly, with Holloway in charge. That didn't work. We changed it. We had Pulis in charge, and I mean, we could sit here and talk about the managerial revolving door that we've had for the last 4 or 5 years. And, ultimately Roy's our most stable appointment we've ever made, but it's not been since day one in the Premier League. We have had this sort of living hand to mouth attitude about being in the Premier League. And if we need to make a change in order to increase our chances of survival, then we do that. I never got on board with the European run that everyone was sort of mooting around the time that we played Burnley and Leicester this season. Listen, obviously it's great, and I'd get on board with it if we ever made it. But you look at clubs like Burnley when they made the Europa League 2 seasons ago, and they were in the bottom 3 for the first sort of 4 months, 5 months of the season. So I think it's the last thing we need. We can't scrape together through a season with the squad that we've got. The last thing we need is to be going to, Azerbaijan on a Thursday night. That would just be the death knell in terms of our Premier League status. But like I say, we've never been afraid of making a change to increase our chances of survival. Now, I don't think it's looking into the crystal ball. If we keep Roy, are we going to go down next season? If I had to put money on it, I would say no. I think Roy's a safe pair of hands. And even if you scrape it by a point or goal difference, I think Roy knows how to sort of ensure Premier League survival when we make the change next season. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about Eddie Howe at the moment. Again, Roy's still at the club. So Eddie Howe's not an option at the moment because Roy's still at the club. Is Eddie Howe a better option than Roy Hodgson? Well, he's a bit longer term. I don't think I'd be singing and dancing if we replace Roy with Eddie Howe. But it's the gamble that the owners have to make. And like I say, we're not used to having a manager for the last 6 years, and now we're all getting a bit complacent. So I take your point, Chris, about are we all being a bit spoiled by being in the Premier League? And yes, we are. We're all used to certain things and being linked with certain players, and we've all now got that mindset. Even those of us that were at in the Championship games for all those years. But it gets to a point where you look at if you give Roy Hodgson, if we've got 30-40 million to spend, and that's the only money we've got for the only significant money we've got for the next 2 or 3 transfer windows. Do you give that to a manager that we can sit here now and almost safely say that even if he stays, Roy Hodgson is not going to be here at the beginning of next season. So is that the manager that you give 30, 40, whatever it is, 50 million pounds to spend now? And it shouldn't be a decision about money and investment, but that's the game. And in the circumstances we're in, every pound matters now. We're not getting any revenue from X, Y, and Z. So that's the decision that the owners have to make. Do you take the gamble now, or do you play it safe for 1 more year? And playing it safe doesn't guarantee safety. But yeah, we are spoiled. Luckily, I haven't got to make that call. But listen, if we keep Roy for another year, I'm not gonna give my season ticket back. I'm not gonna not go to the games. I'm not gonna, be looking to boo him at any given opportunity. It's a tough one, but it's a head versus heart decision at the end of the day.
So, question, Sam: am I going to dislike you after this quiz, as I do after 90% of your quizzes? Or
no, this quiz is fine.
Last one was about my shop, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was reviews for your shop. Yeah,
that was probably my favourite.
Yeah,
is it Palace related or is it general knowledge? Because if it's general knowledge, then that's fine.
So this is, I think it's 10 questions. Half are about our season as Back of the Nest, and half are about Palace-ish.
Okay.
Well, I've got to remember stuff about our show.
Sure.
I'm not a fan, to be honest with you. It's not really my sort of thing.
Question 1. Excluding this episode, how many Back of the Nest podcasts have there been since the start of the 1920 season? That includes review, preview, Love Sport, Lockdown, and specials.
All of those numbers seem way too high. What the hell have we been playing at this year? Seriously, what have we been doing?
I was told fastest answer wins, so I've just clicked.
Yeah, it has to be the fastest.
Fastest correct answer.
It has to be correct.
Yeah, but come on.
So the answer is 115,
What?
which nobody got. Everyone went for a 98.
Fucking hell. Fair play if someone's listened to all 115. I believe they should be doing
Serious respect for that, because that is.
That's a lot of time.
Shows I scored 31 goals. So we had 31 goals to talk about in the Premier League in 115 shows. I don't know how we've done it, but
how many goals per show is that? That's not. I mean, that's
that is
scary.
That's incredible.
Question 2.
Like and subscribe, guys.
Oh, here we go. This has got to be.
Which back of the nest team
I mean,
members
that-
score the most on podcasts over the course of the season?
That's a
You've not
given.
Sam, Halbert, or Terence?
Weird.
You'll notice a theme here.
Yeah, there's
with-
some connection between those three that I'm just trying to put my finger on.
And notice I did put on podcasts as well.
Have you been
Yeah.
keeping
I
a-
swore a lot.
Do you actually know the
That's
answer
true.
to this question?
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Oh, I never thought you'd defeat Albert. That is.
I mean,
No, it's not me. I'm a good boy.
I don't know.
And considering
Yeah.
Terence got to review the Brighton game and continually said C unit, it was quite impressive.
Yeah.
Hesketh,
there's definitely more swear words than there are goals.
Yeah.
I swear when we score a goal. I'm laughing at your voice because you.
Oh,
actually-
Question 3.
Oh, I
I'm
think I know
just
the answer.
laughing at your voice because you actually sound mature. Who was this comment from DR about? Is it Mike, Si, Chris, or Chris?
So it was a comment from DR. Okay.
Yeah, DR said that comment in one of the shows.
There's only one answer to this question.
You ain't getting fastest answer for this one, mate. You're right on that question.
Slow and
Yeah,
steady
yeah.
wins the race.
Imagine I get this wrong and you guys get it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
God's
The
sake.
answer was Chris Handling.
And was
and
that
that
because I
was-
was using a different mic, or was it because I was? I don't know.
You were hungover.
Oh yeah, there you go.
It's because you weren't whining like a
It was the
chump.
Brighton game. Question 4.
Jeez.
Oh.
At the end of the season, how many videos are there on the Back of the Nest YouTube channel?
What the hell have you been doing, Kernas? There were about 20 when I looked last time.
I didn't realize there was this many as well.
At this juncture, can I just ask? There's a Back of the Nest YouTube channel.
Yeah. Like and subscribe.
The answer was
Boom.
Oh, I'm the one that got it wrong.
156.
You
You got it wrong. You're the one that took it up, aren't you?
Yeah. Jeez.
Over 20,000 views as well. Just
Excellent
you know.
work.
Well
None
done,
from me.
Well, mate, the football's over. Get on there. There's so much.
I will.
Yeah.
There's
The moment this
156
quiz is
videos.
over.
It will never be over.
I mean, it's over for me. I've only got
156.
6 points.
156 videos.
That's impressive because
Well done.
It's impressive. Moving on to Crystal Palace themed questions. Liverpool conceded their fastest Premier League goal to former Palace player Dwight Gale this season.
that is
That's a question.
I
Is
feel
that
like
true
you
or
asked
false?
that- I feel like you asked that because it is true. How else? Why else would you think that? Like, it has to be true.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that may or may not have happened. So,
It doesn't have to
I
be
just-
true.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought,
Everybody got
we'll lull you into a full sense of security and give you a easy question.
Yeah, I know we're halfway through the quiz, Sam, and the scores are looking interesting, aren't they? Should we have a look at them?
We can have a rundown, or should we have a run up? Let's
Have a
run
run
up.
up. Yeah.
Albert
Hello.
in last place with 12 points. DR in third with 18. Chris second with 22. So now he's going to hate me if he loses this quiz. Sam, you're in the lead, 31.
The amount of goals we've scored this season.
There we go.
Maybe,
And you
maybe
will get no more points.
True.
Yeah, I'll just end it now.
Question 6. After the pause.
Okay.
How many times was Luka Milivojevic caught offside this season? 0, 1, 2, or 3
It
times?
wasn't that many times in the first place.
Yeah, I mean,
This has to be 0.
he doesn't leave the centre circle, so
Yeah, it's it has to
Can I change my answer? I don't want. I'm going to leave it where it is. But
How many times did he take a decent set piece? Same number of answers, same options.
he scored one. Remember? So, oh,
The
it
answer was 1. And no one got it right.
no. And
Which
I
the
one
don't
thing is,
even know when it was.
I think I remember it. It was I think it was after lockdown. I think it might have been the Bournemouth game.
be.
There we go. Anyway,
I bet he got an absolute bollocking off Roy for being that far
Oh.
forward.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Question 7. What is the current average age of all the Palace goal scorers from this season? 27.8, 28.6, 27.3, or 28.1?
How old is Jordan Ayew?
I definitely pressed the wrong button on this one.
You can click again, I think.
I think it's 20.
Fine. It's fine. I'll take the loss.
I mean, I just obviously, like probably most of you, just went for the oldest possible answer.
Yeah, I didn't do that, so I'll take the loss.
And you would have been right.
Yeah, there we go.
Was 28.6 years. That is current age as it stands today. I didn't take into account birthdays or bother to work all that out.
I haven't had a single point since
I'm
we
now dubious about the validity. What's the word there?
Validity.
Validity of the entire quiz. I mean, what kind of shoddy operation is this?
It's an excellent question.
I didn't bother to check.
Question 8. What was the Palace shooting accuracy this season? 32%, 29%, 38%, or 43%?
I'm sure it's about 43% because we only took like 2 shots.
Yeah, I was thinking I've answered, and I just thought, hang on a second, it could be a lot higher considering how few shots we bother taking. So
I went with the lowest option. No, actually,
Yeah.
that sounds a bit realistic. Go on.
32.
32.
Ooh, I'm first.
Don't
Not at all.
spoil it for everybody, DR. They are screaming, "Ooh, I'm first!" But it's very, very tight at the top. I mean, Albert, you've probably left it a bit late to do anything major.
I've got like one answer correct then. You just
one answer. It changes the whole thing. I like how everybody went for something different as well.
There we are.
Question 9. Which of these players did not finish the season with a score of 80 on Dream Team? Patrick Van Aanholt, Wilfried Zaha, Jordan Ayew, or Vicente Gaeta?
I don't even know what Dream Team is. What's Dream Team?
You know,
If you're
the fantasy
referring
football.
to the long-running Sky One football drama, I know what you're talking about because I worked on it. Yeah,
You did work on it, didn't you?
final season, mate. Some say the best.
Yeah. Well, some might suggest that's not quite true.
Is
but
that
hey,
is you?
Oh, I didn't even answer.
You get 10 seconds.
too busy going on about your fucking TV career.
It was referring to fantasy football Dream Team.
Oh, I don't do fancy football.
None of these players were in my dream team.
So Jordan Ayew didn't finish with the season with a score of 8. What does that mean?
Because he had a higher score.
Yeah, he finished with 105.
Oh, can
At
we
this
read
point,
out the question?
did you bother checking this?
Yes, I have verified
you checked
this.
this one, did you?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm
Final
trustworthy. Final question.
All to
In a
pay
bit,
for.
just go away.
If you're not me.
An obvious one, hopefully. Who has enjoyed Sam's quizzes the most? Mike, Chris, Patrick, Nick, or trick question? Everyone has loved them.
I can't believe it. I got this wrong. If I lose this,
It's going to be Mike. I didn't say Mike.
no.
I mean, Mike was probably the angriest of anyone.
This is not a sarcastic question. This is a genuine question.
I mean, I put the answer I assume you think is true, but you're wrong.
No way.
Yes.
It was, in fact, a trick question because everyone has loved them.
Agreed. Wonderful. I love these quizzes.
Chris, did you answer your own name in that last question?
I didn't know because I knew I hadn't enjoyed them at all. So
That was me. I thought you won a couple. Oh, I can't believe this.
I won a few, but I mean, Sam knows. Well, Mike made the point first that quite quickly Sam's quizzes got incredibly tenuous and essentially became guesswork for about halfway through because they were fun, weren't they? They were fun, but they didn't really reward the knowledge of anybody. They rewarded.
I don't think that's true. Who won this quiz?
Yeah, I mean,
Shall we leaderboard it?
yeah, go
Yeah.
for
Do the
it.
top three. Just do the top three.
So since the midway point, Albert has not improved. His score remained at
My
12.
wife said something similar the other night.
In third place, making
Did
the
come last,
podium, DR with 33.
I thought it with the last question. I can't believe it. Oh.
In second place, Mr. Hambling with 37.
That was all right.
But in first place, because it's Team Sam's, 39, Sam
It's your
Hesketh.
age, isn't it, Hesketh?
Congrats.
How dare you? It's my age. Absolutely not. 38.
I'm
Or,
closing that window.
or as DR thought, 24. Thanks, DR.
Yeah, you actually
Yeah.
look young. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, you're slightly less kind to me about my age, aren't you, dear? So
Because Amber, you do look old.
I'm 40, mate. I'm only 40. It's just this sort of silver beard thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't help.
I thought it was a wonderful quiz, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got
always
mixed feelings about it, to be honest. So, yeah. Just checking out this picture. Right. Anyway, so it's just Albert posting a picture of Sam's face frozen from earlier into our chat.
Mother.
Oh dear.
I look 25 if a day in that photo.
Right, let's wrap this wonderful event up with some listener questions. I'll just chuck them out to random members of the team. So I will. So this first one is from Mr. Cadbury's Parrot, who says, "What's your understanding of the Surloff contract? Any chance of getting him back? Do you want him anyways?" So I'll do the first part, and then someone else can answer whether they think it'd be worthwhile keeping him. So I believe the contract is obviously, so he's got one more year of a loan, and I think at the end of that. What they call Trabzonspor, there you go. They have the right to purchase for £6 million, I think it is, rather than euros. So they have the right to purchase, and we can't stop that happening if they can afford it and the player wants to move. However, the way it might not happen is if Surloff doesn't agree to join them for that much, for whatever contract they offer. And chooses to come back to Palace for his last year or try and force a move. Or similarly, it won't happen if they can't afford to make that deal permanent. So, but as to whether or not we would want him, I have mixed feelings because I thought when he played for us, he was basically terrible. He's clearly gone up a level. But I suppose, DR, first to you, knowing Turkish football like you do, what are your thoughts on him coming back to Palace?
He's happy there. He's loving it there. I'm not too sure if he won Golden Boot there, but he was a top contender. I think he has done, but I need to double check. Him at Trabzonspor, he looks like a completely different player. And I guess you have to look at the leagues that the league he's playing in. The Turkish league is not as competitive as the Premier League, and I think that's the main contributing factor. I don't think much has changed for Surloff. Maybe confidence boost, of course. You can see it there. He's more eager to have shots at goal. And you look at Palace this season, we've only scored 31 goals. So you don't think he'll be in opportunities that he was at Trabzonspor if he was at Palace. So I think he's enjoying it there. His time at Trabzonspor. And I feel like he will opt to go there rather than come back to Palace. Because even if he wants another move away from there, I don't think he sees his future at Palace regardless. So yeah, it's gonna happen, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not the biggest fan of Surloff due to what team he joined there, but yeah,
I've seen you getting shirty on social media about him. So the sort of follow up for that is from Jedi, which is saying Surloff scoring shed loads in Turkey, and Hodgson Edward scoring shed loads in Scotland, but which is the strongest league and the better player? And he's citing a couple of sources saying that the Turkish league is better than the Scottish league. But obviously, I suppose the comparison he's doing there, and I'll let you take this one, Hesketh, is people probably seem a little bit more keen on Hodgson Edward from Celtic than they do effectively keeping our own player. And what do you make of that?
Well, I think that I don't really watch much of either, to be honest. I think the Turkish league is probably stronger than the Scottish league by just because they got more than two half decent teams. Fenerbahce is obviously the best team.
Yes.
But I think the problem with Surloff is he's obviously doing really well this year. But the times that I saw him play for Palace, he just didn't look like he had footballing intelligence, if that makes sense. He'd make weird runs. He just didn't look like he was going to get in the right position. Obviously, he's doing that in Turkey, so good luck to him. But I just, like you, Hambo, I just didn't really rate him when he played for us. Edouard, when I have seen him, he looks really good. I am half French, so I just want French players. So I'll say I would rather have him than Surlot. But yeah, he looks really good. He sort of looks like he can hold the ball up in the way that Benteke's been doing much better of late. He's strong on the ball. He takes shots from all over the place, scores goals, all variety of goals from what I've seen. Whether we'll be able to get him off Celtic, I don't know. I'd love it because he's young. The fabled resale value is obviously going to be there if he comes to us and does really well. So I think he'd be a really good signing, but whether we have the money to do it, whether he'd want to come to Palace as opposed to, a Leicester who have Brendan Rodgers, who I think signed him for Celtic, I don't know. But I think it'd be a very exciting signing if we were able to get him.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense. I think he's the better player for sure, and I think a lot of things that not just about the standard of the league in Turkey. It's just a bit that thing about confidence, isn't it? Surlot's gone there and he's just gained in confidence all the time, and that you can see the things that he's doing, the runs he's making, the power that he's kind of playing with. Because you saw when he played for us, he was a big unit, but he never really played with that kind of level of certainty. Never put himself about or anything like that. Whereas you see how he's playing in Turkey, he's such a physical player. And he's also, showing the pace that we very rarely saw from him, as well as a sort of a degree of speed of thought. But I think if you were to bring him back into the team the way it currently plays, look at the effect our style of players had on the strikers that we've got. We'd just ruin his confidence, I think. And he would become the player that left us rather than the player that he currently is. So I don't really see a future for him at Palace. And I think, as you say, Edouard, with the skill that he has, as well as he's quite a good athlete, and he's just a better quality of footballer, even though he is playing in Scotland. And we've seen some pretty terrible players look superb in Scotland over the years. Anthony Stokes. Right, okay. Next up, Albert, you can take this one. What needs to be done over the short break? And do you think having a shorter season will be the end of our shallow aging squad? So we've obviously got a very short time until we have to start again in September. And does it make it even harder for us to deal with how old our squad is?
Wow. Well, we're shit at transfers, basically.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
The transfer window could be 9 months long, and we would still wait until the last few hours to actually try and do anything. So, I mean, all the noise is coming out of the club about we want to sign younger players. We want to do business early. I mean, this is all coming from Roy Hodgson. I've not seen any quotes from anybody else to sort of base an opinion on. It's just a very strange time for football. I don't know how busy the transfer market's gonna be in general, really. I mean, I know Sky Sports love to do the old totalizer of how many billions has been spent in a transfer window, and I mean, I think they'll struggle to get blood from that stone this time around. And we've done the Nathan Ferguson deal early, but we haven't done it early because we should have signed him in January, or wanted to sign him in January, and left it late, and the medical failed, and it's kind of a bit of it's a very promising signing, but you look at it and you think, well, we knew that was happening. I think we spoke about it on the preview pod. I don't know who else we're going in for necessarily. There's a lot of talk about Eze or Easy from QPR, who I was talking about today, and really had the dampness put on that by the couple of QPR fans I spoke to. They were like, listen, if you give us 15 million quid for him, mate, we'll drive him there ourselves, type thing.
Yeah, we've heard that from people before when
of course.
We say it about.
Go on.
Yeah, I was just saying we've said it about some players in the past that we've probably liked until the time that they decided that they wanted to leave. But sometimes it's true as well, because we would have said it about Jordan Much, and
Yeah, and how wrong we were.
He's not worth anything though.
Interestingly, they were sort of saying, if you're looking to play him as a striker, you're looking for the wrong player. But whatever, we are famously slow in any given transfer window, and I think a lot depends on who we let go. Obviously, we're all waiting to see how the Wilf ongoing saga resolves and what money that brings in. And I mean, listen, we got 50 million quid for Wan-Bissaka last year, but we didn't exactly see that money get thrown into the squad, and for probably very valid reasons. But I think there's a lot of floating balls up in the air at the moment, least of all mine. And there's the managerial situation needs to be resolved. Whether that's purely a vote of confidence from the board and coming out and saying we're with Roy for another year. That needs to be resolved very, very quickly before we can even look to start turning players around. So, listen, we all like signings. We all want to bring players in that are going to turn us from going to give us an extra glimmer of hope and excitement on the pitch. But I think this transfer window, more than ever, it's going to be a very cautious one. And I'd love to say, we're going to flip players around and we're going to get rid of all the dead wood and replace it with young, promising, exciting championship players or foreign gems that no one's heard of. But it's just not the way our club is run at the moment. So, I hate to be a downer on it, but I just can't see major changes to the first 11.
No, I think that's probably fair. Although there's all sorts of rumours of play. You've mentioned one in there in terms of Eze, and Eric CPFC has asked, do we think he'll come to Palace? And I would just say it depends what you read, really. There's some people saying nailed on for West Ham. There's some people saying there was a podcast, I forget the name of it, apologies, where Eze had appeared as a guest back in May, I think it was. And they recently tweeted that he actually wants to join Palace. So whether you feel that they've said that with some kind of prior knowledge, I don't know. But I guess we'll wait and see on that. So I've got a question for you to deal with, DR, and then one for you to deal with, Sam. Actually, Sam, we'll do yours first, and then we'll come back to DR. Your question, Sam Clacker, is from Selhurst Exile. Dyche, Hodgson, or Howe?
One of those awkward pauses.
Another. So you've been given 3 options and you're refusing to choose any of them. Seems.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. Yeah, I can't specify.
I think that's fair.
Stop you doing that.
I don't see what the point of switching out Hodgson for somebody who is equally as boring would be. So
what are they both? They're both equally as boring. I would say, in fairness, one is considerably more creepy, but probably less boring.
Who's that?
I'm not going to name names, but you can pick one of 2, and I'm going to describe what I feel about. And the other one, I'm just not sure is the right fit for Palace. So that's what I'd say about them. But I would prefer either creepy Thunderbird face or gravel voiced. I nearly said a word I can't say. The gravel voiced man. Let's just leave it at that. Get myself into trouble if I'm not careful. But I would prefer either of those gentlemen to another season of Roy, if I'm being brutal about it.
Seriously?
Well, that's your opinion. I mean, you're entitled to it.
All right, Sam. Jesus Christ. I just asked you one simple question and now it's turned into this. DR, your question is, which one player would you sign from each of the 3 teams that have been relegated this season?
Why are you putting me on the spot?
Norwich,
Bournemouth,
and Watford. Which player would you sign from Norwich?
Well, I'll leave the Watford one to Albert. He has more knowledge there. But the Norwich one, I'll say Todd Cantwell. I think he's a very good footballer, good on the ball. And we need another attacking threat going forward. I feel like we haven't got many quality options up there. So Cantwell would be a realistic option. I mean, Max Harrington was linked with the club previously, but we got Nathan Ferguson now, so I don't think we need him. So Cantwell from Norwich. From Bournemouth, he'll probably have to be Brooks. He's shown quality there. Is this season instead of Ryan Fraser, who, he's coming to the side, so he's looked positive there. And from Watford, I said I'll leave it to Albert. So Albert, go ahead with Watford. This is your specialty.
Listen, look, there's Watford out there, right, in that window. I can't make it any clearer. I'd sign Troy Deeney, and then I'd say, get out and come over there, please.
Strong words from Albert. Sorry, would you say Ishmael Sarr? Yeah, he's good, very good player.
Yeah.
Also, Doucouré is good. Yeah. I thought, well remembered, Albert from
yeah. He's just
on the terrace. Yeah. So who did you say from Bournemouth, DR? I was reading something. Brooks. So a lot of people saying Brooks. Well, of course, we're strongly linked with Ryan Fraser as well on a free. How do you feel about that?
Technically not a Bournemouth player. I don't want to.
Yeah, former. Yeah, no, it's true. Can't argue with that.
I wouldn't mind Ryan Fraser at the club. I'm not really into his. Of course, his wages are important, but 100,000 a week? It does sound a lot. But who else are we going to get? I mean, who else are we going to get? That's quality. I don't see it happening. There's been Eze, of course, who's been rumored, but he could potentially go to West Ham because he's linked with West Ham, and they've got Hugo, who both parties want a player from each team. So it fits them better to do business with West Ham QPR than us. So I feel like a realistic option would be Ryan Fraser. If we get Ryan Fraser, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't get Brooks, because Andros Townsend has peaked, I think, and we saw it this season. So we do need another wide option out there. So I wouldn't mind both of them, in all honesty.
You're saying Andros has peaked. He used to be peak, but now he's peaked.
Yeah, he's peaked. His form, his game has peaked.
All right, I'm just enjoying the slang there. One last. This isn't a question, but I think it's quite a nice message to finish on. It's from Daniel Schilling, Dazed Pin Head, spelled head differently. He says, no question. Just a thank you for your wonderful podcast, effort, hard work, and keeping most of us sane during lockdown. And he's put a big kiss at the end. So I think that, thank you, Daniel. That's hugely appreciated. And that's a big well done to all of you as well. All of you there. Sams and Albert and DR.
Did it
well
say
done,
PS
everybody.
preview pod especially, or?
No, I didn't say that. Look, you guys get a lot of the love and attention because of your irreverent style. And your
Sam's language does
swearing.
Yeah, the swearing. Yeah. You guys keep it real for us, and that's what it's all about.
Well, we're fake, Amber.
No, we don't keep it real. Terence comes on every week and talks about grapefruit-based disco cans of lager.
Oh dear. But I'm going to be honest. Having seen from the quiz the number of podcasts we've put out this season, that's pretty impressive, I have to say. And when you couple that with the video content, it seems like we're hell-bent on world domination. But it is nice to get that recognition. And we had lots of lovely messages throughout the course of the year. And quite frankly, some grief as well, which I always enjoy. So
sorry about that.
Yeah. So, man, I've tried blocking your numbers, but you seem to have a new one every week. It's very frustrating. So no, we've enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm sure Terence is gutted he couldn't be here this evening. As Mike Scott and Chris Clark are some reason holidaying together in Cyprus at the moment
during the pandemic. I mean, that's why not?
Yeah, I mean, essentially they're doing exactly what they would be doing in this country, but in Cyprus, which is going to pubs.
Can't knock it.
No,
I'd said flashes of going on holiday with Hesketh and like, fuck.
Imagine.
Where would you guys go?
Iron Appa.
Been there, done that.
Same. So probably before DR was born.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean,
there were planes back then.
I did Ibiza in '98, and that's 2 years before you were born, isn't it, DR?
Oh, I had this. But he was born in like 1940s. I'm not even too sure, but you've gone through different eras. Back in the day, you used to watch some black and white TV.
1994 or 1940s? Because one is...
1940s.
You've got middle for diddle there.
Yeah. Amber used to watch Palace in black and white TVs. He's told me lots of stories on other trips away days.
I did have a black and white TV, that is true, as a kid.
Yeah.
But but that's because he didn't have to have a TV license for them. You know, I grew up in exactly. You know, but I'm not that old, dear. Even though I feel less like your football dad now, I don't see you very much. But,
yeah.
We
haven't lost an away game though together.
No, never lost an away game that we've gone to together.
Never.
So that's something. And now we've stopped going to them at all. That record can stay.
Exactly.
But anyway, look into the future, guys. You know, we're hoping at some point we might be able to get back in the stadium again. Are you missing it? The actual experience of going to games, or are you with Palace as they are, you're kind of thankful you don't have to go? Definitely.
I'm happy. I'm happy as it is. I'll be honest with you. I mean, how many goals have we seen at Selhurst this season? Because we've scored 41 goals throughout the season. So how many was there at Selhurst? So probably like 15 goals.
Yeah, if that. Yeah, been pretty depressing. But look, fingers crossed it'll be a brighter season next time out. So not long to wait. Obviously, transfer window will potentially be exciting given how much work we have to do, but we've outlined our fears on that respect. So all that remains to say is to obviously, first of all, thank everybody who's been on today. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, DR. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Albert. Yeah. Appreciate your time. And thank you for listening to everything we've done this season and watching our content on YouTube. Subscribe, like, share all of our content, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Thank you.